Well, we're just a couple of minutes late, but all our cameras are working now, so we're ready to get rolling. Today is a double header in terms of our topics. So we've got an update from Dan on the water conservation program, and also Anne is going to talk about the campaign for the birthday of the surface water supply, which should be fun. So a lot of stuff to get through. So we'll just kind of move quickly through our intro section here. But this is our very first 2026 Water Advisory Group meeting. So welcome back, everybody. Excited to start the new year off again with this group of beautiful water nerds, and excited about today's conversation too. As mentioned, water conservation, we're going to cover this topic in our next couple of meetings too. So I think some of the material that Dan is going to share today, we don't have a lot of detailed discussion questions to cover, but it will help with upcoming conversations too. So excited for the discussion, and then also carrying that topic forward into a couple of additional conversations this spring. And then, as mentioned, kind of this special opportunity to get your all's reactions and ideas on this campaign to celebrate the anniversary of the surface water supply, which is a pretty special thing to get some excitement around. Really quickly, December meeting, thinking back, that was our year in review opportunity to consider all of the topics that we'd covered in 2025 and how that input from this group is being used by the city. And a couple of those conversations are going to come back. So the water conservation program, planning and rate research, we're expecting to have some more conversations about that as we head into this 2026 timeframe. And similarly with drainage and density, that was part of our stormwater master plan conversation last year. And then I think there's some upcoming conversations about more specifics on the implementation that might be around that policy as we head into this year. So excited to keep those conversations going. And then special thanks to Mike, who gave us a sort of an armchair tour of the Public Works campus design features for water conservation, stormwater management. I think several of you got to do a walkabout at the new Public Works space and campus and see some of that in the works. Maybe that demonstration garden can be part of our tour in this later spring too.
Aubrey, it's nearly in. So for the folks here, they can peek outside and say, I'm surprised Mike didn't come in person to check it out, but it's
sorry, I was there yesterday and I have to scoot to a dentist appointment here early. So sorry. Yeah, it is. It's almost done. It's very close.
Well, congratulations.
Exciting.
Yeah. That's great. And hopefully everybody got to see that in person or will soon. But if others online are hearing this, there's also a nice talk through that content from Mike at the end of our last meeting in the recording. We did capture some areas of interest from this group when we connected in December. So we are tracking all of these ideas. Many of them align with the topics that we have kind of targeted in our roadmap for spring of 2026. But we're also, just kind of keeping this in mind. Gray water and water rights were new things that came into the mix. And so thinking about how we can fold in some of these conversations, and then some, it just may be a question of timing. And we may, end up having those conversations in fall or later on. So please keep that feedback coming our way and what's of most interest to you, if there's something we can do to improve the process.
And I'll note, I really appreciate everybody's input on topics, because the gray water one, people in this group being interested in that is great, because it's actually a council goal to look into the concept of gray water. We're not sure how much it could achieve in terms of water conservation, but it would be great to be able to run it by this group. So I'll be working to fit that into the agendas over the course of this year. So thank you for that idea. And then water rights, we'll try to figure out, maybe we'll ask Oda Verdi to help us give a presentation about that at some point.
Great. All right. So next 30, 40 minutes, something like that, will be Dan giving a run through, a little bit of a reminder of what the water conservation program, water conservation program measures are all about, talking a little bit about the right-of-way code, which this group discussed in 2025 and earlier, and then a little bit of information about the modeling and data that's informing future planning for upcoming water conservation measures and efforts. Dan, do you want to get us rolling?
Thanks, Aubrey. Sure. So good morning, everybody. just a quick revisit to the demo garden, Mike. We actually have Bureau of Rec out here. And so they delivered our weather stations. We're putting in 5 new basically ET or weather stations around town in different locations to collect more weather data, which is really great for us and other programs like field sampling, looking at stormwater and precipitation events, that sort of thing. So pretty excited, but we've got one ready for the demo garden, and I met with Brian this morning, but we need to figure out a strategic place to put that. So next time you're out here, give me a ring.
We did put a dot on a plan at one point. It's probably buried in a long email string, but I'll see if I can find that for you.
Yeah, we were kind of waiting to see how things got put in the ground and
Yeah.
where our coverage would be. So, but exciting stuff. So, we'll be adding to the Agromet network, which is a large national network that's publicly available data, but is also going to help us in our water management efforts. So we're super excited about that. But on the topic of water conservation programming, this winter is an interesting year for us because we have so many things kind of converging. This is our normal time of year where we do a lot of like program analysis and adaptation for the forthcoming irrigation season, when a lot of our programs take place. We also are at our 5-year benchmark for our water management and conservation plan. So we're doing a reanalysis of the new measures, the 10 new measures that we added in 2021 from the larger WMCP effort. We also have the rates going on. We have a lot of kind of work into demands throughout our system, correlating that with water operations within pressure zones, things like that, to try to become more targeted and effective with programs where we need them to manage those peak demands in the system as a whole, but also throughout town to help operationally. So a lot of things going on, but for those of you that have been with us for the last year or so, you probably heard us talk about these. For those of you that haven't, this is a little snippet of the 11 measures or the 16 measures that we looked at. We chose from, I think, 160 originally, narrowed it down to 16, and then we broke them out into 3 different programs, A, B, and C. Kind of weighted really heavy on outdoor, one weighted on indoor, and then one was a combination of all the measures. Some of those, like outdoor water surveys, free faucet aerators and shower heads, those are things that were currently in place, but that we wanted to model and continue providing. So that program C is what we put into our modeling effort and into the water master plan, and then that got finalized in 2020. In 2021, that rolled out. That was approved by council and rolled out. So that's when we started to implement these measures. Just a side note, as you look at that list, we implemented 10 of those 12. We reprioritized 2 of those. So initially, the turf conversion, just because of the heavy upfront cost for those, it was a little slower return. So we didn't launch that initially, but we did call that up later based off of customer demand. And then the retrofit on resale, I think I have some text about that on the next slide, Omri. This kind of all happened at the same time we were trying to launch the energy score. And there was a lot of negative feedback from the real estate community and folks that didn't want that to happen. So we said, we'll hold off on that one because that's really stepping into private property, building codes and things like that, that we didn't have a foothold in just yet. So we kind of said, we're going to hold off on that and maybe reprioritize some of these that are easier to roll out in conjunction with existing efforts, right? If we're already going out and doing these on-site evaluations for single-family residential, let's start with that customer group because that's easy implementation. Because really, once council adopted these, we just had to hit the ground running. It's like, okay, we said we're going to do it. Now we've got to create these programs. So that was a pretty obvious route for us to take. So So this is just listing some of the modifications to what we had modeled in that 2020 DSS model, or decision support services model. Next slide, please, Aubrey. So this is kind of the timeline of how everything happened. That initial analysis was done and completed in 2021. And as you can see, we started with single family residential in 22 and started adding customer classes and rebates to our program kind of in succession. Until 2024, we were pretty much had fully implemented all 10 of those measures, including new right-of-way code, bringing up and launching the new turf replacement program. And in 2025, we were kind of at that midway point. So all these water management conservation plans are a 10-year kind of lifespan. And so at that 5-year point, we've got things launched. We're 2 to 3 years into most of these programs. We have some good data now. So it's time to reevaluate with our data. Like, here's the assumptions we made for these projections. And then now here's our actual data that we collected and analyzed how these programs performed. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And then so 2025 right now, we kind of have 2 phases of this work. And Aubrey, if you go to the next slide. Okay, stepping right away. We can go back to the timeline real quick. Sorry, Aubrey. We kind of have 2 phases of how we're going to do this remodeling. The initial was for us to give them our data to put into the model, into that same program suite, a program seat, to see how the trajectory changed and what impact it had. The second phase of that is actually going to be refining that. Okay, now we see what our numbers are. What are the differences in participation than what we expected? How have demands changed? How has population changed? How has growth changed? And how can we make our existing programs more impactful before we go adding any additional programs? So that's the second phase that we're going to be working on here this winter and into spring. Any questions on that from anybody? Okay, so that's some good background. So let's go to the next slide and start with the right-of-way landscape code. So initially, what we had measured in program C was an on-site building code. So we go on a private property and we have requirements for plant types, certain types of irrigation, that sort of thing. With landscape, there is no real national code to tie anything to that's existing. And we didn't have any processes in the city where we were inspecting anything else other than really a backflow or maybe, stormwater swale on site. So we had nothing to grow from, or a place to start. So we said, well, why don't we try the right of way? We have our standards and specs. So November 1st is when that launched and went live and was adopted. And essentially, there's a lot to it, but boiled down, it now required plans to be submitted for the right of way, reviewed by our team. We combined street trees and our street tree requirements into that, since we were already looking at the landscape. It made sense to look at it holistically. We created templates for expedited building permit review and acceptance, but it boils down to we no longer accepted any sort of cool season grass or synthetic turf in the right of way. It has to be native or low water use plantings. We require separate irrigation zones for street trees so we can manage the water better in the hydro zones. So street trees are going to need a large volume of water less frequently than most of the low water use plantings. We're asking people to install. And then the irrigation style, whether it was a point source drip or an overhead broadcast type, was dependent on the right of way width, because what we had were basically 15-foot irrigation beds going in an 8-foot right of way. So problematic from a code enforcement standpoint, which we would go and end up dealing with later. So trying to get things right from the start, and then the use of new technology. So smart controllers that are basically using these ET numbers or these weather station numbers, like things we're installing around town now, to change and adapt the irrigation schedules based off of plant water needs and weather. Next slide, please. So the new processes for us were obviously, you know, we had to learn our own building processes. So working with our planning department, private development engineering, our planners, to figure out how do we insert our review and our work into their existing processes or create new ones.
The codes and standards are the easy part, the implementation is the hard part.
Sure, making policies. But this was, I would say, the biggest hurdle for us. Not just in the beginning of figuring out how we were going to do this and who we were working with and where things were attached, what building permits this was attached to, or what part of the process. But once we got going, learning, what do we do in these situations? Development, you come across oddball things all the time. And how do we deal with those individual challenges? And I mean, that really, the benefit was it solidified a lot of relationships with our team and these other departments because we were figuring things out, brainstorming together. But we ended up building a lot more of the process than we thought we were going to make it fluid. Some of those things, we developed guides for applicants and designers to boil down these codes and for their designers to know how to implement them and to get, you know, counts on trees based off of our new species classes and the different spacing requirements and all the offsets to utility infrastructure and inside PUEs and all the other requirements that we have around these areas as we densify, as we you know, have these different situations that we're running to in the right of way where everybody wants to put something. So how do we balance, you know, urban tree canopy with our requirements with what needs to happen with development? So that's been helpful. Working directly with the builders and designers has been super beneficial. So now we're on, you know, first name basis with a lot of these and the site supervisors. So when we have changes or things that run into issues, we're able to make those pretty seamlessly and timely. So I think that's been appreciated on both sides of the aisle there. And then, like I said, the new process is really working about the applicability. We had like a 3-year exemption timeline between when this would take effect. So if your land use approval was done anytime before November 2024, you had a 3-year exemption between the time land use approval was given and when your building permit came in. So you could have an approved master plan development and then got your land use approval and gone through infrastructure and said, this is what we're going to build. And then your building permit comes in and we're like, nope, your exemption expired and now you have to follow this new code. So working through those things with the builders. And so I think that's really where the one-on-one and simplifying some of these processes has been a benefit. But for the most part, I'd say we've ironed out most things now and are moving pretty quickly.
Which is pretty good. It's only been a year since this rolled out. So
Yes.
kudos to your team.
But things we're looking at now are building permits for individual lots. We're diving into site plan review. So this is more putting comments on the land use approvals or the tentative plans because now we have lot divisions and things that are kind of adding to that process. And then infrastructure review. So we're trying to hit things earlier before we get to the building permit and have to have someone make a change, right? So the earlier we can have these conversations and lay out the requirements, the better. Next slide, please, Aubrey. So some of the support provided, again, already talked about some of this, but our pre-approved templates primarily being used by our we're seeing this in both production housing and in kind of the high-end custom residential. So those have been a blessing. And then the development guide, we still get, you know, the one-off custom designs, and that's totally fine. We're willing to accept those. There is a little bit of back and forth on how we need to have corrections made when we receive these to get into the stamp plan set. But for the most part, and then some developers that made their own templates, which is totally fine. They worked with us to make their own templates used in the same manner, and that's really expedited that building permit review piece. Next slide, please, Aubrey. So here's just a couple metrics. So this was pulled from our reviews. So we've done a total of 399 reviews since November 1st. There's the approved and failed. They could be failed for a variety of reasons, either missing information. That could also be, we're only one review in a long list of reviews done by building inspectors and engineers. So some of those, if one person fails it, it goes back for a complete review. Everyone has to review that same permit again.
Dan, what's the difference between the two tables? So the one on the left is plan review, and then the one on the right is inspections.
Yep, I'm getting to that. So the one on your right, sorry, the one on your left is the plan reviews. So these are the things coming in prior to building or issuance of the building permit. And then the one on the right is our inspection. So we're seeing that the work we're doing up front, we're not having to revisit a lot of these or fail a lot of these in inspection, which is nice. A lot of those failed were in one particular neighborhood where there was some miscommunication about applicability of the code and whether they were going to follow it or not. And so some of those resulted in us requiring them to rip the turf out retroactively and convert their irrigation system. You know, that wasn't an easy conversation to have, but I think the builders appreciated us, you know, towing the line and being clear and working with them to get it done, because they submitted it correctly in the building permit review and did what they wanted anyway. So I think towing the line, you can see the number of fails really dropped off after a while, which I think is part of that consistency. When people know that we're going to go out and actually look at things. But we are collecting feedback from the contractors, from the builders. We stay in touch with the landscape contractor community very frequently. Again, those conversations with the builders and the toughest things that we're finding are the biggest issues are really like how to interpret the language around plant densities. We're asking for 50% canopy cover at maturity. Some people are trying to get that right off the bat. So we'll go and the whole thing is planted, you know, everything a foot apart. Others are maybe a little more sparse and are hoping that, you know, these little yarrows and things are really going to get real big. So what we're doing in those cases are really, it's that one-on-one communication. Hey, this is our requirement. You know, this is kind of your grace period to get things under wraps, and we're going to start enforcing this. And, you know, this one I just looked at would not pass. So they're getting a chance to kind of go out and rectify it. And a lot of them will have things done and like full conversions done by end of day. Like that's how eager they are to go final and to get these things done. So good response times there. The irrigation for trees, that was also a tough one in the beginning for folks because we want to manage water differently for those different plant types and hydro zones. We were getting people tying the right type of irrigation off of the drip line, which is incorrect. So a few corrections there, but most of that is resolved now as far as what we're seeing. The other thing we were curious about is when we first did this, we had Mike and his team put together a proposed cost difference of what these new changes, how they would impact each lot. And we came in at about a 20% increase or around $800 per project. And what we're seeing, these are costs directly from the landscape contractors, is a range between $575 and $3,200. Obviously, I mean, that's including everything from like polish, which is like production, you know, maybe 150 square foot right away to a Discovery West with like 1,000 square feet and, you know, a higher end home and custom built. So we're right in the middle there somewhere. But again, these are only from a few contractors. So if we did that, when did we do that analysis, Mike? Was that like 22? 21?
That's a good question. That sounds about right. Right after the pandemic, feels right.
Yeah. So I've added some of that.
When we were headed to council with new code, so I think it actually was more recent.
23.
20,
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think when we did that.
Did the dollars estimate?
I'm thinking inflation and just cost of materials.
Well, yeah, and remember we did that based on a 6-foot plant strip or maybe an 8-foot plant strip and a 40-foot wide lot, right? So like you said, the lots vary and the areas vary quite a bit from project to project. That was in 23. Yeah.
Okay,
So that feedback doesn't correlate with that 2025 numbers. They're in the tables.
I'm sorry, which one?
So the feedback down
Mhm.
below, that
Yeah.
doesn't correlate with the 2025 tables above as far as like, if we're looking at metrics like in 285 approved and of those, this feedback wasn't from those projects.
Yes, so that feedback is like everything from the first contact we had with contractors, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of things we're seeing throughout the year and other items you were seeing kind of repetition where we're having issues during our inspection.
But it'd be probably more relevant to the second table, which is the things that have actually been installed,
Mhm.
because the first tables are presenting plan review.
Right, but I mean, we've dealt with both, right? So when we get a plan set and we're not seeing what we want.
Us into.
Oh, sorry, the costs are based off, yes, the finished projects, right? But the other feedback is based off of both plan review and
Yeah.
inspections that we're seeing. So we'll see. I mean, the idea here is like, I'd like to get a good average number to kind of look at return on investment for, because this just gets passed on to the homeowner eventually. But look at what the offset from saving water versus this initial investment is. At that way as well.
Yeah, and I mean, not also on the additional cost. There's just a lot of factors. So we were basing it on sod versus native. Your installers might have been basing it off of like extremely sparse 4-inch plugs versus whatever they had to do now. So there's just a lot of factors. So
Yeah, for reference, one of the irrigators we talked to was charging, I think, a little less than $1,500 for a new valve. So that was that additional valve we're asking for the street trees. And the other
Yeah.
one I talked to was charging $2,500.
yeah,
Same materials, it's
Mhm.
whatever their labor markup is. So you're right, Mike. There's a lot of fluctuation.
that's why you always get plans and 3 bids, right?
Yeah. That's right. Okay, next slide, Aubrey. So these are some of the examples that we're seeing. So these are photos we're taking out on our inspection. So this is like a Discovery West. Things we're looking for, again, that mature density, the right technology, the right type of irrigation, and the correct tree species and tree spacing. Next slide. This is just kind of like a few or a couple of reels. So this is a different development. I think that's Easton on the left. So they've got good plant density. They're choosing rock mulch. And that's really where that benefit of having the extra plant material is gonna show up. We're checking each controller for the stations outlined, the right technology. So that little Link Wi-Fi module is how it's going to connect to that weather data and to the offsite and offer the offsite management capability to the customer. And then the separate zones with the root watering systems that we're now requiring for trees. A lot of times we'd see, funny pipe with bubblers running right up to the crown for the trunk of the tree, which is not healthy for the tree and is not providing water at that drip line of the tree when it's mature. So this is actually a subsurface graded canister that goes down the length of the root ball. And there's a bubbler inside of there that is putting the water down at the root ball subsurface. So we're trying to eliminate that runoff as well. Next slide, please. And then these are some of the ones that we were running to. So you can see the difference in plant density there. That one on the left actually had like a 1/4-inch strip tube tied around the trunk of the tree, which would probably girdle it. And then a battery operated controller in a new install. So typically those are used when you are doing a retrofit where you've had an irrigation line cut that you can't retrace and rerun. They'll install a battery operated timer for convenience. because it eliminates the trenching and reinstallation of wire. But the customer doesn't know it's in that box and doesn't know they need to go replace batteries and reprogram it. So we are not allowing that in new development. So we had just a handful of those, I think. Next slide, please. So what we're looking at for right away, you know, this first year learning process was, again, it was a grace period. We had no fees for re-inspections. We technically allow them to submit photos for their inspection. We had a handful of folks doing that, weren't really capturing everything that we asked them to capture. So we had the option of an on-site inspection. We defaulted to that anyway, just because we wanted to learn what was happening, how things were being installed, and make those contacts on site with developers. So I don't think we accepted any just based off of photos this year. I think in the coming seasons, we could probably do that now that people are on track.
At a certain point, we'll start charging for
Yes,
some of this, particularly for re-inspections, but we figured this was a learning year, the first year, but we hired one full new FTE to do this work.
So yeah, we do have a fee schedule for re-inspections and things already existing, we just haven't been applying it. But yeah, so all these issues, the tree placement numbers, that's gonna continue to be a tough one for us. So I think internal coordination with other departments, now we have an urban forester. We're gonna have fire code, building fire code, so that's another, you know, program we're gonna have to collaborate with. So that when we're putting trees on site in these high density areas, we don't have canopy intrusion into eaves and things like that. So short of it is we're running out of places to put trees. So we're gonna need more collaboration there.
Yeah,
And so some of these, you know, meeting the plant density, obviously that's external communication or outreach with the building community, tracking development and right of ways in open space tracks. So this is an interesting one. They're during land use, they'll put a condition in there that they have to develop the frontage of these master plan communities prior to issuance of their where they going, of their tracks, basically, before approval. So that's going in before there's any building permit or anything tied to it. But right now, we're tracking everything through a building permit or through infrastructure, but that's actually being installed before anything else happens. And a lot of times we'll go out later because it's adjacent to a lot and they'll tie that into the site plan. But it's been installed for 2 years and sometimes not meeting our code. So that's a process we're working out internally of how do we tie those open space tracks or something that doesn't necessarily need a building permit to get comments on there to at least follow the code or reference that. And then communication to the developer, that was referencing just that, really that one issue with the one developer we had, but that's pretty much been resolved and we've worked that out with them. And then the tracking and measurement, what we'd like to do is actually build some sort of dashboard. Not exactly sure how we're gonna do it yet, so we can track all these building permits, but I would like to put a square footage number to these. And then also tracking which ones are within our water service area territory and which are not. A lot of the master plan development is, you know, Stevens Ranch or Petrosa, which is outside of our water service territory. So it's effort we're spending with not a lot of result to, you know. producing we're helping our partners. But then we've got like Timberline, Shevlin West, Discovery West, and a lot of infill that we are catching through that. But I'd like to track those numbers to kind of distinguish and kind of work out what the impact is water system. So that's something to come. Next slide, please, Aubrey.
I had a question on,
Yeah.
excuse me, it's on the controller for the irrigation.
Yeah.
With that smart sensor linking to weather stations. It's as simple as if there's water, it's not, if it rains, it's not going to water that day, or how does that work?
There's different kinds. So some of them will link to a maintained weather station. Some have an on-site weather station, and then some use a broker So there's like Weather Underground, which basically are a bunch of private and public weather stations. So yes, it'll either catch enough rain in this little gypsum block and turn it off until that's dried out, or it will, some of the controllers will forecast out. So we'll look 3 days out and say, we're anticipating to get, 10th of an inch of rain, so I'm going to reduce my run times. Those are problematic in Bend because the weather changes almost daily. So there's different variations of what people can choose. The one we're seeing most common, a lot of contractors will buy the same model, for all 250 homes, right? So that one in particular is using the Weather Underground feature. So that's going to look at available surrounding weather stations and let them choose one. We're hoping by building our network here that we've got both sides of Bend covered at least. There's a lot more microclimates, but at least we have like an east-west coverage, and hopefully that can provide some phase relief too. Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, dip into the modeling piece. Thanks for hanging in there with me, folks. So as I discussed, there's a few phases here of things we're working on. The first is to run that model with our true data, right? So what was our actual participation numbers? What was the actual savings per participant? Or however we're normalizing that numbers, water savings per square foot or per unit, depending on the customer we're working with. And look at that data after 3 years of implementation. So what we're looking at is a 3-year average prior to them participating to a post-establishment year. So if it's a turf replacement program, you don't want to look at the year that they did the project because they're trying to establish plants and that water use is going to be skewed. So we're looking at the full post-establishment year versus the 3-year average for that program. For smart controllers, we're still using that 3-year average. And then we're looking at the first full season after installation and things like that to try to get some true numbers. And then phase 2 will be working to refine, okay, well, this is what we did and this is how it turned out. How do we make this more impactful? So for those 10 existing measures, we're really going to define on, do we need to reduce our admin time and admin costs to the utility? Do we need to, are we okay not doing an inspection on each one of these? We're collecting data where right now it's telling us we need to be out there talking to them. I think only 40% of the smart controllers that got rebated were programmed correctly. So, and those are, some of those are DIY installs, some of those are contractors, but we have a follow-up inspection where we go out and basically re-audit the site and set them up to make sure that the controller is set how it should to make those automatic adjustments, and it's going to provide enough water to their yard and not see adverse effects to their plant material. It's no good if we're out there killing their landscape either. And then we will look at 2 to 4 additional conservation measures, and that will be modeled in a 4th program, Program D. So one of those will be gray water, and then we'll see what the list is that they come up with us. But basically, that'll be an internal process of looking at more proposed measures. I don't know what type of information they'll give us, but we'll have to make an internal decision on what we think would be beneficial here in Bend and implement, and then they'll run it through the model for us to show what impact those would have. And then phase 3 will be to update council. We're going to finalize the WMCP prior support. I think we have to turn that into the state by end of October. And then if there are any changes to it, we'll have that winter of 26, 27 to kind of make changes to those programs and the launch the following spring. Next slide. Okay. So this is kind of just a snapshot. So this is when we're in our model. We're putting in, all of our customer data. We're putting in all of our utility data, our growth management data, our jobs, our population forecasts, our demand forecasts, and it's a 20-year outlook. And then each individual measure has variables and inputs based on dollar amount of rebate we're going to provide, how many of each we're gonna allow a customer to apply for each year, what our admin costs are, what's the life expectancy of the measure being effective, but also what is the life expectancy of the savings? Is this a permanent in place saving every time it's used? Or does this vary based off of behavior? And, you know, so typically our smart controllers are going to be very affected by customer perception and behavior. And so that's, again, that follow-up audit to make sure they understand how to use it, things like that. And then we're choosing, you know, which customer classes we're going to offer this to, and what percentage of that customer class are we going to reach or expect to engage with. And so all that is added up and put into the projection on that target effect. So some of the things that changed in 2020, they assumed that the impact would be much greater on single family residential, because the last year was, I think, 2018 or 2019 that we were using for our historical data. And at that time, single family residential was still prominent and where we were seeing most of our growth. Like literally a year after we adopted this, that switched to multifamily, right? So already our engagement projections of how many people we were going to touch with this in single family residential just dropped, right? The service area population, again, that's going to be used for our demand forecast as well as, you know, areas of growth, you know, people per household and things like that. So that GPCD number that we're talking about. In 2024, that number was reduced historically. So they went back. So all our GPCD numbers are now going to look different if we go back and compare now to what we projected, right? Because they not only gave us a new number for 2024, but they went back to, I think, 22 or 21 with their correction. So all this to say, when we're looking back on what we projected, and that's so variable anyway, just based off of economics, you know, development practices, you know, what kind of market penetration we're already seeing on these devices, right? So what buildings are being built with these high efficiency devices already? That all affects how close our assumptions are going to be. Program participation projections were much higher because of all those factors, right? Because we expected more new homes to be affected in our water service territory in that single family residential area. You know, those homes impact our peak day much more with the outdoor watering, right? So when we shift to multifamily, that affects more of our baseline than our peak days. So there's some effect there. And then the measurement life, in the initial one, this is something I caught when I was comparing the two. They had put every measure life as permanent. So they were saying that every device installed, all the savings numbers were going to be permanent for the life of this projection, which may be true. I mean, the toilet might last you 20 years. A washing machine, probably not. I mean, not the way they build them these days. So in the new model, they actually, you'll notice it's kind of like the third little box down, the second box down to the left, the measure life, they put 12 years. So when we're looking at the rest of this, there's going to be a engagement or participation number, then expected water savings based on that measure life. And so we're doing a 20-year projection. And if we were to look at this spreadsheet, you would notice that would die out in like 2036 or whatever that is. So that's a little bit of difference in the model. So that's why I'm going through this now. I'm going to come up with questions. We're going to revisit it and try to refine this a little bit better. Any questions on this or any of the modeling? This is just scratching the surface of this stuff, but I can try to answer questions.
And you're modeling how much water you're gonna reduce? Are you looking at your rate impacts also as part of it, or is it just water reduction?
So we didn't run a rate model through this. That's another piece that Dana and Jillian are working on that we're interested in kind of piecing together with this. But no, this is strictly conservation effect and cost. Totally.
And you have a target that you have to hit?
So the target we had to hit in the 2020 was 7.9 billion gallon reduction over 20 years.
And that's the.
But that was a goal, that was
That's-
not a regulatory target.
Right.
No, we don't have a regulatory requirement of achieve this much reduced use, but our
This is-
requirements were about, we needed to examine uses and put them in place.
Yeah, this is more about like system optimization and making sure we're gonna be able to grow within our water rights.
Didn't remember if it was a hard target or not.
So
We get some more doing the mapping and the reduction.
yes, so and then we came up with our own kind of GBCD targets and gallon per day reductions based off of that to try to guide people that way. Good question.
And how did, for that goal, how did the model look compared to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Segue.
Okay, let's go to the next slide over. Okay, so what we're seeing here is the orange and blue line to the top were the original projections for demand in blue and orange with conservation for that 2020 to 2040 period. The green line is what our actual demands were up to 2025. And then the blue and the green line extending from that were the new demand and conservation projections based off of the 10 existing programs and what the new expected demands were going to be. So you can see the demands are definitely different. A couple of the things in here, if you look at that 2020 through 2025 period is, and again, we haven't refined any of that new conservation, right? This is just based off of the participation numbers we had, right? So if we expected to get 250, smart control participants and we got 50 a year, that's gonna have a big impact, right? But the thing here to notice is the story we're gonna tell with that green line and what we projected. During that whole time, we were doing our existing conservation measures, right? So that's, we're at that point almost 10 years into some of our existing, what we call our baseline programs, our technical assistance, our sprinkler inspections, all those that we're kind of adding these programs to, right? So that's the conduit we're delivering some of this message is when we're at a site. Hey, this would really help you. Did you know we had a rebate on it if this is what you decide to do? So that cross pollination there. But there's a success in there that we never hit our projected demands. Right, we're 863 million gallons less than where we should be this year, or what we projected this year. And so some of that is what we're going to try to tease out during the refinement of this. Again, this is just the initial numbers and me trying to put the graph together to show you guys what it looks
It's
like.
really hard to know exactly what's providing what kind of impact. So is it there was a reduction in population growth.
Right.
Than what was projected. So of course that impacts. But yeah, we're also implementing a whole bunch of things and hopefully we're seeing benefit from that. And then every year is different on the weather and the demand too. So
So a couple of the things that we're seeing that are not on this graph, but that we're looking at internally are our peak day demands. So our peak day demand hasn't changed and it actually went down a couple million gallons this year for the last 7 years, right? So for us, we were consistently at 26 million as our peak day for 6 years. We hit 24.9 this year. Our gallons per capita per day, our per person usage is going down. We hit, I think, 4.7 billion this year, which is 91 million less than we produced last year. So we are seeing the downward trend despite population growth. So that's another story, like in that little red piece, it's like, there's a lot to tell in there.
and the
Yeah.
land use has an impact too. So Dan mentioned single family is now transitioning to more multifamily. So you have smaller yards and less outdoor use. So you may see an increase in indoor use per acre, but the outdoor use is lower and we're not sure how that's gonna balance out.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things. I mean, these are all, there's predictions and then there's measuring the actual and seeing how we're doing, but this is a really complicated analysis. A lot of communities are not in a position to do this type of analysis.
And is this calibrated to the actual water like collection system and water data?
Yeah, so the new, well, yeah, so all the production data is our data. All the new, data inputting, the 10 existing measures in that lower line is from our data. So that's what our savings numbers were. That's what our new updated population numbers.
Based
Are-
on water usage,
Correct.
correct?
Yep,
From
yep.
production or from?
So it's from,
meters?
this is production, not consumption. We have another graph showing consumption. But yeah, these are the kind of things we're looking at on how to make those two lines more divergent. You know, when we get out to 2020 or 2040.
And maybe explain why production is different than consumption.
Yeah, so, it's pretty simple, but, basically not all the water we produce goes through a water meter in the customer, right? There's water in the delivery system, there's water loss, there's, apparent losses, through meter inaccuracies, there's all these things that we look into, and we have a number on it. In our percentage, I think about 5% is what we're typically running at. But there is a difference between those two. So when we're looking at, you know, conservation effect, we're also gonna look at when we implemented a measure and what was the customer's consumption as well as the production. And then, sorry, go ahead. I think someone had a question.
I was just gonna note, we've got about 30 minutes left. So Dan, I think this is
Okay.
actually your
Fine,
last.
sure, yeah. Okay, so this is, any questions? I think this is close to the last one for me, but any questions on this one? Okay, so this is basically a preview. We'll bring this back to the group once we've done the refinement and take another look at it. But yeah, there's a story to tell on it. Aubrey, next slide.
Yep.
Good question.
So we'll get a chance, Dan, to come back to water conservation. I know there was a lot here, but it's kind of neat to hear with this group, you know, the right-of-way codes has been a continuing topic, and water conservation measures have been a continuing topic. So hopefully those of you who've been along the way are kind of appreciating the updates here. And then obviously all this feeds into future planning, and it's so interesting to see the data and the integration of all these different complexities of managing towards multiple objectives and everything else that we've been talking about as a group. So any other, give just one more beat. There's another question out there, and then we can turn it over to Anne. Kristen.
I just wanted to share my appreciation for the monitoring and like data collection and connecting with developers for feedback, and just like you know, not just setting and forgetting the policy and changes, but like making sure it's working, making sure that it's effective, and you're getting the results that you want. So it sounds like you're doing a lot there. I know it takes a lot of staff time, but I'm sure it's leading to better results and better policies going forward. So thanks.
To add to that too, there's I think we've talked about this for several years. This is all being built so that 5 years from now, you can look back and show the progression of how you've collected the data compared it to your original projections and made adjustments. So I'm assuming here that obviously there's a close coordination of communications to be able to message this, give a really simple, clean, clear message that says the city of Bend is here working toward water conservation. Here's how we can help. Here's the ROI. That's 5-10 years down the road. This would be a really powerful tool, having started a few years back and working on this stuff.
Yeah, our comms team, Ann and her team have helped us kind of slice and dice that. Like, how do we communicate the successes and the need to continue or, you know, strive for more change or more help. So yeah, it's, I think we'll have a good story to tell. It's just a lot of things. You mentioned a lot of areas.
It's good groundwork.
Yeah, thank you.
I do think it's impressive. I mean, I was working for the city when we were putting like the last iteration in place, and there were kind of the devil's always in the details, and it's hard. Water conservation is a hard thing to bank on when you're trying to look at production, and it's impressive what you guys have done. The level of effort that's gone into engaging with developers, and that's really detailed hard work, so. Actually, there was a tree growing over a water line built in my neighborhood, again, but,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, God, what are you guys doing, you know? You killed this tree just by planting it here, so even little things like that, with the utilities, long permits and stuff. It's
Yeah,
impressive to see what's been done in the last 10 years.
it can be painful up front,
Yeah,
but in the long run, it's worth it, right? You
Worth it.
don't have to
Yeah.
replace that meter or
Yeah.
pull the tree out. Yeah.
power factory to dig up the water line in New York.
Yeah.
Some stuff.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Yep.
If you have other thoughts or questions, you know, you can always, please just reply to Dan or I and we can, because we're at a good point where we can add it to the analysis right now. So please, if you think of anything, please do forward it. But let's move on to the 100-year anniversary. This is very exciting and it's very relevant to what we were just talking about as well.
All right, great.
Are you keeping track of the time? How much time do I
I have
have?
like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Go ahead and just jump right in. If that's not obvious, we're celebrating our 100th birthday of the city of Bend providing water services in Ridge Creek instead of Deschutes River. So that's right now. And we want to use this opportunity to kind of leverage all the communication opportunities. So yeah, there we go. The goals are basically, we're going to celebrate this milestone this year, and we're going to use this as an excuse to get more participation and get more education on all of the water services that we provide. And we don't have any intentions of creating new programs as, you know, part of this, but it's a way to amplify all the messages that we already have. So keep going, Aubrey, please. To start off with, we'll have some sort of branding. This is all very conceptual. We have graphic designers in the central communications who are working on something right now. There'll be a logo, something along those lines, but the words that we're landing on right now, we've got some consultants that have helped us, and we've talked a lot internally, is 100 years of water with our logo, celebrating a century of exceptional water services. And the reason that word services is in red up there is because thanks to Lori and Mike, after we kind of threw this out there, you guys pointed out, we need to make sure we're not implying that like water started 100 years ago. So does this reflect
What was here before that?
what was going on, you know, with tribes and in the environment of more than 100 years ago? So there's some debate. And this is where I would love to use you guys as just a sounding board if you have strong opinions, because the folks that have talked about this so far are mostly communications people. So what do normal people think? If we throw the word services in there, does that mean anything?
You're saying we're normal.
You're normal, normal nerd.
We're all water nerds.
So water sounds really good.
Yeah.
100 years of city water would make would clarify it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
City water.
City
That's
water.
an interesting
Yeah,
idea.
that is a good, oh, really? Okay,
Oh,
okay,
good. Julie,
This is
you
being
can answer
recorded,
this, right?
right? So I
I
can
did
come
speak
back to
toward
this.
it, yes.
okay, I like that. I'm gonna go through this fairly quickly, and if you guys please interrupt me, or if you have thoughts later, we can later or whatever. So how do we translate that logo? That's like the brand image that'll be on stickers, and it'll be on brochures, on the top of brochures, and it'll be on a banner that will put tables. But how do we translate that into a call to action? What we've come up with is I love Bend water. That's supposed to hit us like at an emotional level. And we all care about water for different reasons. This is going to mean different things to different people. So we've got this fill in the blank idea. Are you happy, Dan?
Are you happy?
There's a lot of water.
I've told you what you wanted. So we've got this fill in the blank opportunity. I love Bend water. So I will use, you know, I'll do the turf rebate or the turf replacement program, or so.
I don't know things down the drain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I will take the stormwater walking tour, so I will do all these things, and I'll show you some examples in the next couple of slides.
or low fin water because it makes the best beer.
Exactly. That's on the future slide. It also translates nicely into yard signs or t-shirts, and all sorts of swag that we can use along with this campaign. So you're gonna see this again. Go ahead. This is where I would love some of your thoughts too. We've tried to identify who we're talking to. Like I said, people care about water for different reasons and they contact water in different ways. So these are these audiences that we're trying to target. Explorers are people who like to get out. You know, somebody's gonna go hike in the watershed. Somebody's gonna do the stormwater walking tour. Knowledge seekers are the people, there's a lot of new people in Bend and they might just care enough to learn about their water system. Or, you know, families with kids who are looking for ways to keep their kids educated and informed. Change makers are those folks who have the power to make a difference. Hopefully the commercial property owners will fit into this, homeowners, you know, the folks that can use your rebate programs, conserve water. And then the activists, we've described as social and environmental advocates, perhaps. When you think about the people that you know in this community, are they reflected in here or have I missed anyone?
Businesses, the people who own businesses, operate. I know industrial use
Yeah.
is a big part of use.
I would fit them into change makers, but they are definitely a targeted and unique. Yes. Okay, thank you.
It's also an apathetic group.
Yeah.
A large.
Yeah.
It's like you talk to them, that you have some familiarity, right? But
Yeah.
that could also be acknowledged as an audience.
Maybe
because-
there's.
Maybe, well, I think most of those are gonna be the change makers, so they.
Okay.
But the apathetic, the group that doesn't know they care or doesn't care, but.
How do we get them to care?
That response has to be 3 characters or a simple sign or something.
Yes.
They're not gonna do anything about it, but the exposure to the idea,
Yeah.
the concept.
Maybe
brings.
they'll wear the t-shirt anyway that says I love them water.
It's a long game.
Yeah.
You're working toward the next time around. Maybe they remember.
That's a really
But
good.
there's an apathetic group, they won't care at all. We don't.
We have a lot of
Water
them.
nerds.
The future water nerds.
The future, yeah, and the untapped resource of today's apathetic.
Thank you.
Intentional pun.
It was.
Okay, Aubrey, you can keep rolling. Thank you. And then, so everything that we do, all the messages that we have and all the engagement exercises that you're gonna hear more about in just a second should boil down to these 4 key messages. And these key messages came from the water services team, like the management team here at the city. The things that we need to get across are water quality is something we can brag about. We have these amazing water sources. We have, you know, state-of-the-art water testing on the 3rd floor of this building to make sure that your water's safe. So there's a lot of good stories to tell under quality, the value of water. And I mean this in like, this is the rate conversation. So what are you getting for your money? We have amazing employees here doing a lot of important work. We use technology, infrastructure that costs a lot of money. So how can we tell those stories in an engaging way to show that there's a value to this water? We have a special system. We have a unique system. It's red because we don't know which word is best. And that's what I wanted to hear from you too. It's unique that we have dual source system. We have surface water, we have aquifers. That's, you know, provides all this redundancy and resiliency and reliability. If you guys have a strong reaction to unique versus special, we've gone around and around internally on that.
You can at least the word reliable. Because it is.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of things like generators
And that's
and
the point of
things to keep, you know, you have a gravity fed system that there's a lot of things in there that make it usable.
And that's important. I think we definitely want to talk about reliable, but we also wanted to note that like the Deschutes Basin, the whole water system and the whole geology and all of that is really different. There's nothing else like it. And so that was kind of where we were headed with the special or unique is, part of that is reliability, but there's like something else there too, right? The bigger thing, and we've gone back and forth with, is special a good word? Or is unique a good word? And all these things cross-pollinate each other.
And the reliability is the story that we're telling.
Yes.
In that category of messages.
Yeah.
But I want to vote for unique, so.
Yeah.
And what about, yeah, resilient, like
Yeah.
kind of what you're trying to describe, isn't it?
Yes. Oh,
I also see all the other three as these are messages of something being brought to the user, the customer, where the unique or the special isn't being brought necessarily. It's more of a recognition of it. I think I like the idea of elevating reliability or resilience, especially in the Atlantic Cascadia and what we face in the future potentially. There's highlighting, high leveling that, and then highlighting the dual source and the fact that it is special and unique in its geography and geology. But having all four of them brought to the customers, this is the city's stewardship. This is how we give you
Yeah.
cost value. There's great quality of water. There's resilient water.
I understand.
There's a higher bullet point on that third middle one.
Stewardship is the story that we tell about conservation work that we do and reuse and reclamation. We do long range planning to be thoughtful about these things. And so that's pretty.
it's also things people can do, like even like, because we're thinking it's 100-year anniversary of the surface water source, but it's an opportunity to celebrate all of One Water. And so things like not dumping things down the storm drain that might get in the river or the groundwater is, I think, also another type of stewardship component.
It's the partnership.
Yes.
It's like, we're not just asking our customers to do it. This is what we're doing too, kind of highlighting the internal work.
Sounds like everybody like these messages resonate with you. Close, okay. And so you know that we're like 80% baked on this plan, and we're gonna launch it in the next month or so. So this is great to start fine tuning, and I appreciate your back. Okay, keep going, Aubrey. We have engagement associated with all these. This messaging is kind of static, but then we want to engage the community too. And we've got 3 different tracks. Each one of these tracks should be attractive to one of those audiences. So I'm going to give you 3 slides in a minute and give you a little more detail, and maybe we'll come back to these questions afterwards. But the main point is celebrate. Everything is celebratory. Do you want to do exploration, protection, or learning in your engagement? Go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'll explain what that means, and we'll come back to those questions. So under that explore tract of engagement, this is attractive to the explorers audience group. We want to get you out into the field and see and experience these places. The idea is to educate, but also really have people connect with the river, the drinking water, the infrastructure, whatever it is, so that they are going to be more inclined to be stewards, to protect it. So the picture up there is the stormwater walking tour, and on the bottom right is just some examples. I love in water, so I'll go on the stormwater walking tour because Bridge Creek is pristine. So I'll visit the city booth at Earth Day. Those are the kinds of exploring opportunities that might fit under this tract. And go ahead and go to the next one. Under protect, this is supposed to focus on where you live, your home, your neighborhood, things that you can do that are tangible to save water or protect water that goes back into the system. We figured the activist type, the change makers might be inclined to take action in water stewardship challenges. And ultimately, we want people to conserve water, protect stormwater systems. There's so many things. We already asked people to do these things. This is nothing new. So we'll leverage, existing messages under this campaign. I love Bend Water, so I'm going to sign up for Water Smart. And then the story can tell what is the benefit of this software system.
And that's actually a measurable goal. We're thinking about goals from this campaign, like where will we be at the end of this year? So one is, Water Smart was like 30% of our customers are actually signed up. So I'd love to see that double by the end of the year. Like if we can really do a good job of working even harder to get the word out, can we see a significant gain in folks signed up? Because that is such a huge tool for us. People can really work on their own water use, but also it's a way for us to send messages and all kinds of things, so.
So those are examples of how people can engage and protect. Go ahead and go to the next slide, which is learn. And this is a little less tactical, less hands-on, but lots of ways for people to learn through our websites, through our videos, through our social media. We just want to connect people with what they need to know about the water system. The history of the system is the whole launch of this thing, and then what are we doing in the future? Some of the examples that we have under the I Love Bend the Water is because it comes from natural springs in the forest. So there's an opportunity to talk about the history because it's tested for safety. So I would visit the Historical Society and learn the story behind Bend's water. Or I'll take a virtual tour of the water system. Again, these are examples. We probably won't use all of them, and we'll probably use additional ones, but lots of learning opportunities. So Aubrey, we go back to the first like 3 slides, and then I had a couple of questions for this group. What do you think is going to help encourage participation? We do intend to get some prizes. We will track participation. And so if you send me a selfie of yourself hiking on Rich Creek, we've logged that, you're a participant, we can enter you into the drawing. Is that enough? Like, what would inspire you all to get involved with something like this?
Or how do we even get to people so that they would notice this and want to participate?
Media, yeah.
Or just, I mean, I know they do, like the news itself does. Media or, you know, it's for a while, a feed. It's numbers.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something new and interesting. For those that still watch.
Big lift, and I know it's kind of a crowded space, or can be, but restaurants, when they serve water, I mean, all of our restaurants feature Bend's water, so there's a little triangle, tabletoppers, and then you get your carafe of water, and if there could be something next to it, it just says, hey, this is what you're drinking experience.
Yeah, with a QR code on it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really good. That's one of the things I was thinking when I saw the view. I love good water because maybe it doesn't taste so weird. My daughter's 8 and she's grew up here. And anytime we travel outside the city, she asks me, what's wrong with this water? I don't know, it needs to be in water.
So we'll get there. One of the things we wanted to look at, a whole list of video ideas, that some of them are big productions that we're going to outsource. Some of them are like more grassrootsy. And this is where I think this group could be really great. And I'm going to come back to you because we would love to get 30-second selfies of, I love Bend water because it tastes so good. And when I go to a hotel in Los Angeles, it just doesn't taste as good. And those kind of things would be fun components for community members. If I can lean on you to, maybe we can help with that stuff too. But
It's like a sign you had of I love the water because is we could have, certainly at like Earth Day stuff, we could have almost a booth and people could put their, I don't know, put their face through the water drop and then, you know, we could record them saying
yes.
or, yeah.
Maybe leveraging a lot of the partners that are already there that can also celebrate the water, like Parks and Rec, there are, and, you know, schools, obvious thing, like, it seems like in participation, I was thinking like, what if you're gonna do a certain like car video or something competitions, you could do something in film, we give them, I know we already do.
We are doing that, and that's the theme of
The student video competition this year.
Here is that.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, so there's one partner for sure. In the interest of time, I'm gonna keep going. If you think of things
Yeah,
later,
let us know again.
I use hydro flasks, would be good. Since it's
Yes.
Bend and
water, yeah. You know what this one says? Bridge Creek Water System completion, April 2016.
Remember that.
I still carry this thing around, so yes.
How you've kept your water.
You hit on some of these already. How are we going to publicize the campaign? These are all the standard things the city does. We'll have a website. We're going to have some videos, regular social media. I get an email group started of people who are interested in this. So not the apathetic probably won't sign up for it.
Should see it.
We can do some advertising,
We should give a prize for people that encourage an empathetic person to
right?
to
Like,
engage.
sign up. We'll do yard signs. I'm gonna talk just a bit more about in a second. We'll have in-person events. So you guys all know too, we're gonna have a Public Works Week campus open house in the middle of May. It's in partnership with Art Public Places because we have a lot of public art on this campus. So they're doing tours of public art. We'll do tours of the campus, and then this water topic, we'll have a table out in the back or something.
The water conservation code.
Or that, we haven't obviously figured that out yet.
Public Works Week, May.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that
She would face.
And we'll do tabling like an Earth Day. Am I missing something? Are you guys aware of events that I think would be a great candidate for this?
Reverse week or rear week.
Yeah.
I left the hat, just, you know, has to.
Unofficial.
Spirit fest, I guess that'd be.
And then little Woody, both of those.
Yeah, that's.
We have bed in yours, but we've done all the concerts, and it could be so, a lot of.
I think, my understanding from Haven Homes is there would be straight to that, who.
They literally have
State.
one water tap down there for drinking water, like if you could bring that board down and sign up somewhere.
Oh, we heard they had that tap there and we could bring that board and.
Yeah. Yeah. Put that on your list of things to talk to Bo about. She's having coffee with Bo students in the next couple of days, so. Okay. If you have opportunities to help promote this campaign, you'll see it. You'll be on my mailing list automatically. Obviously, we would be very appreciative if you have this room is there. Have to.
Yeah, if you're willing to push out messages, or if you're willing to like help host an event or something like that, or want to hand out
Grab
some
some yard
swag, or please let us know.
I'm sure Deschutes County can partner for that, so I can figure out what some good opportunities for that would be. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, keep going, Aubrey. Thank you. I just wanted to share these video ideas with you. Some of them I'm really excited about. So one, we'll have to do the history, right? How did the water system all begin and how can people get involved in the water stewards? I think another really good video story is water is key to our success as a community for industries and also just like growth and development. And it's like this backbone of our community. So I could see including community leaders and industry representatives to help talk about, you know, Bend wouldn't be Bend if it wasn't for this exceptional water service that the city is providing. So that's another idea. We also have some really cool staff that have been around for as much as 30 years. And so I think creating a video to highlight some of this veteran staff who can not only talk about how much things have changed, but just create some connection into like the city of not just this entity, but actual people that have personalities and interesting stories to tell. So those are three that we're going to outsource and make, you know, pretty solid professional videos. Then I just mentioned these shorter video ideas, and I'd love for you all to be involved and take some selfies of the I Love Bend water items that work for you. And this is the kind of low budget, take your phone out and
Is there a way for us to develop like a template, like a picture frame that people
Yes.
can use?
Or we can do the development of that at the end. If you submit something kind of rudimentary, I can polish it up with the logo at the beginning and the end of the video. Yeah.
Are there any good ways to show the measurement or demonstration of how high quality the water is and from just sort of a taste perspective? You know, I think all of us recognize how good our water tastes relative to most places. And, you know, maybe regionally we have a lot of good sources, but just highlighting how, not just how clean, but also how good it tastes in some way. Are there metrics for that or ways to compare charts to show it compared to other sources, other places?
I don't know. But
It works before. I don't know if that's still
It's been a
happening.
while.
It was like an WWA thing or something that was best tasting water, but this is funny, it makes me think of like, okay, when everybody goes on vacation like Las Vegas or something, bring a bottle back of the
Yeah.
top water. Have a taste test.
What if you did a taste testing with some bottled water? Because I think the Bend
Yeah.
water could still beat a lot of that,
Plastic water bottles.
like, yeah.
Well, that's
Uncle
even
Peanut.
like an engagement thing at wherever, so
Oh,
we want to
like-
like plastic water bottles certain day.
Remember when you shoot can of water?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can do that.
and compare it to other,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for events or.
yeah, I like that, that would be fun.
That's
Oh, that's a
like-
good idea. Yeah, like a blind taste test at events. I like that.
I like it too, so that doesn't answer your question, but it inspired some fun ideas.
Yeah.
But yes, we had won some award several years back that said we had the best tasting water. And I feel like we haven't won the award in a while, but I don't know if that's because we haven't applied for it.
Or if they're not having the competition
Yeah.
anymore. We should ask Rod, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, he's got multiple awards hanging on the
Yeah.
wall in his office.
I think they still do it, I still did.
Okay.
I can
I think
remember. I don't know if Ben participates, but I know in testing, tasting some others.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a bigger factor in just people liking being in Bend, living, all those sort of things. There's just something to be said, if you have lived in places that have bad tasting water, how nice it is just to have good water coming out of the tap.
Yeah.
Demonstrate that's fun.
It'd be cute, short snippets.
Yes. I do a lot of those.
Yeah, I can second up my kids, like in the airport, we go somewhere, they fill up with.
Exactly.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even at my mom's house, I fill up a bunch of water bottles before I go to my mom's house in Washington, far away. Okay, last slide. I think we have one more, and that is just the signs. Yard signs are more cost effective than billboards. I think they're more grassrootsy. My vision is to have like maybe 3 different signs, because we all care about different things. And I could think of 2 examples that I threw up there. I love Bend water, so I planted a low water landscape and I save X gallons a year. And so you identify with this part of our water system and you put it in your yard. Or if you're the apathetic one who just likes to drink beer, there's your sign. I love Bend water because it makes the beer great, and you can put that in your yard. I'm curious if you guys think this is effective and what are the messages that,
I like the simplicity of the water graph, all of the Bends, possessive S is inconsistent.
that's AI.
I saw it, yeah. The simplicity of, I love bent water.
Yeah, I love Bent.
A good message.
Actually, that would be a
Today.
great year sign.
Yes, it's just that right there
With
with
nothing
possessive
else.
S.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
then
I can't really push this one because when I was at City of Tigard, and this was not a water thing, but it was a traffic speed thing. We had a 20 is plenty campaign. And we created these yard signs saying 20 is plenty with 2 different versions of them, and people could just come pick them up, put them in their yards, and like, put it in the right of way, put it in your yard. But, we went through hundreds of those.
Yeah.
People were putting them up, and I was thinking, you know, it's like, that's how you let your neighbors know that you care,
Mhm.
right? So.
Yeah.
Well, and this is an opportunity, so I think at the very beginning, we talked about that 100 years of city water, 100 years of Bend water, and somebody else had said it too, just the simplicity of messages, 100 years of Bend water,
Yeah.
and then I love Bend water. That's in there,
Yeah.
but I like that sign, the simplicity, that's great.
I'll probably call on y'all to take a few signs. You get them, I'll bring them to some meeting, and
Stickers too.
stickers for sure.
Those
Water
stickers
stickers.
like to go everywhere.
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome.
So
There's
hopefully
a
this is
great-
sparkling some more ideas to the surface and we can keep the conversation going beyond even the meeting today. But I know we're coming up at time. So any quick kind of closing thoughts or asks, Anne, of the group?
I mean, thank you for your input. These are the kind of questions that I wanted to prompt the conversation with. I know we're out of time. I think you know what I'm looking for. Feel free to, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I've got a great idea, email us.
Yes, please.
There's a National Day Without Water campaign, and I don't know if like trying to take advantage of some of those things where there's already messaging around and.
We can think about that. It's funny, we've chosen not to participate with that campaign in this because it's like a negative campaign. It's like, what would it be like without water? And we're trying to promote the positive message, but maybe this would be the year to.
I think that concept fits into this of like the value and the
Yes.
how integral it is to all of our lives and coffee and all those important things.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Please submit things if you have ideas. We'll have more on this over the course of the whole year. And I'm hoping everybody will want to participate in some way or another or many ways. And we should get hold of Ben Parks and Rec because I saw Braun wasn't here today.
Okay.
So